to the start because I, folks, am a trained professional. That's Ed. Like he totally understands how much of a professional I am, or something to that effect. Anyway, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I feel good. I'm awake. I'm kind of like a scared nervous today because I'm doing something brand new a little bit later today. I'm trying something out. I'm building something, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, or it's going to be a thing. But it's an idea I've had for like the last week and a half in terms of advertising for not just comic book creators but businesses using what I do on the podcast as a model to do it. So it's going to be an interesting week of working the bugs out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and you got to take the risk to make the reward.
Oh, absolutely. No. I totally am. I'm totally for that. But like again, when you're about to start something, that's when like all the nerves and second thoughts and like, what are you fucking crazy? And then eventually the answer is yes, I am fucking crazy. But so what?
That's what works.
Yeah, exactly. It totally does. And like I said, and like I said, we got some other things that might be happening too, which is good because I'm kind of in the middle of stuff, but I'm trying to make shit happen, and we're gonna see how it all magically works out. And maybe next week I'll be like, hey, I got a cool service that involves coming on my show and making an ass of yourself. And if you do it, it might help you sell more books. You'll be like, yes, I'm interested in that. Or fuck no, I'm not interested in that at all. What the hell? Right. So, but that's my true feelings for the day. And I realized this, almost nobody actually answers how are you honestly. And I realized that I'm one of those weird motherfuckers. I will actually tell you what's going on.
No, that's good. Better than the superficial, everything's good. If your life is crumbling in front of you and someone asks you like, oh, I'm perfect, doing great.
Yeah, or good and fine are the two like most useless words in the English language. They're absolutely fucking useless because what is good? I have no idea. Yeah. Nice might be the only thing that's worse than fine. Maybe. It's nice. Well, what's nice?
Yeah.
Well, because you don't really love it. You don't hate it. So is it like apathetic? Like I said, our language
mediocre.
Is really yeah, mediocre. Like who wants that shit, right? Who wants just a mediocre thing? So it's like, you know what? Just be honest. And if someone likes what they're saying, great. You know what? Wonderful. If not, fuck it. I mean, you're not like we're not here to make everybody happy. I mean that's
you'll never succeed even.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point, right? So why kill myself? I'm way too old to kill myself with shit like that.
Yeah.
So, now I'm at the ripe old age of 40, so you're probably thinking, haha, young whippersnapper, fuck, you haven't learned anything yet. But I mean, it's one of those things like you just come to a point in your life where you just realize that you just don't care. Not like in a negative way, just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do my thing. I'm not gonna worry about it. Life's too short. I'm gonna be me, you be you. Be happy being you. That's the only thing I kind of hope for. And I mean that genuinely. But beyond that, I think that's the best way to be. I think you gotta let people kind of be themselves.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Ed, what is your creative goals or plans for world domination? Or tell us a little bit about yourself here.
Okay, so I write a series called Immortal Era. It's an ongoing series. So one of my creative goals is just to get this whole thing out, because I decided, instead of writing a bunch of small stories and building from there, I always do things the backwards way. Instead of starting, I'll launch a comic book and single issue stories. I decided to launch a big story that would take 30 issues to finish, and then start putting it out all on my own. Because one of my things I always wanted to do when I was in college was create my own publishing company. So that way you're creating an uncompromised vision of what you want to put out there. So that's where I started in 2019. And the goal at that point was, let's just get a book out. Then, okay, let's see if we can get book 2 out. Still knowing I got this big 30-issue story to tell. Now that things are moving along, I hope to start releasing trades every 6 issues and get this big story told and then start telling some other stories, because I do have smaller stories to tell, and that's where I should have started. But like all things, I do it backwards. I decided on a whim I wanted to run a marathon before I'd ever run a 5K. So it's just, always do it backwards and aim for the top instead of little goals. It's sometimes it leaves you in a bad place, and sometimes it works. So for this, each issue seems to be gaining more readers, so that's a good thing. So what I want to do is just basically, if I have enough readers to sustain this and make it so it's not a money losing endeavor, I call it a win.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's the so there's something to be said about that, because you're basically this is maybe the best / worst thing Chris Columbus ever did. When he came to America, he had his crew burn his ships. You're not going back.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, oh shit, why? Because if you have a back door, you're going to take it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just human nature. It's like, this is hard. I got another way I can do it. Why do it that way? It's human nature. So you jumping in, it's like, I'm going to do the biggest freaking thing I can. I mean, it's not much different than what I'm doing today. I found probably one of the most passionate, meticulous people I could hope to find, because she's going to push me.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I didn't want someone that is easy to please. I wanted somebody that's a little bit more difficult to please, because if I can do her, I can do anyone. Right. That's that right. And the job, folks. Right. But the thing is, if I can do a good job with her, I can do a good job with anybody. And that's the whole idea. Like, it's not it, right. That's why I asked her to start with this, because it's like, you will push me. And if I don't like it with you, then I'm not going to like it with a really serious client. If I'm okay with it with you, then I'm okay with this with a really serious client.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you don't want a nice little yes man around you who's going to tell you everything you're doing is perfect, because that's just going to lead you to failure, because you're going to get an inflated ego, and you need someone who will call you out on your shit. And it sounds like that's what you're going for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I've worked with this person in the past too. So it's kind of like, I know she can push me. So, right. And she'll do it in a way that, like, very few people will. So that's like I said, and you just said, like, I mean, it's good to know how to tell a small story. And I mean, to go the other way. And the reason why a lot of people encourage you to start small is because the thing is, you don't know if you really want to do it. Like, you think you might, but you're not actually sure. And then suddenly, now you put yourself. But I feel you've really wanted to do this for a very long time, is what I get.
Oh yeah, I started writing the story back in '98, so it's been one that's been lingering for years, and it's one of those things where you get ideas in your head and they fall out, and you realize they're going to go away, but this one just wouldn't go away. It kept coming back, and I just kept adding notes, and even though I would abandon it for certain amounts of time because you're busy working on something else. I was working on a master's degree. You start having kids, and you don't have the time to focus on writing like I used to when I was, but that didn't mean the story went away. You just have to find new ways to get it out. So just not disappearing. I thought, you know what? It's time to finally make the choice. Just put it out or let it die in my head. So I just went all in and said, let's get this story out and hope people enjoy it along the way. And building trust was one of the hardest things, because so many indie comics come out with a good first issue and you never hear from them again. Maybe two, and then they disappear. So it's hard to get that trust with your readers that I'm not just going to be one of those, here's a couple issues, you got cliffhung for an eternity and you'll never find out what happened. So you have to make your readers believe you're going to keep putting out issues at the fastest pace you can. I mean, I'm not Marvel. I can't put out a book a month, but at least every 3 or 4 months, get new books out there.
As long as you're consistent, that's the key. Like, that's the whole key of it. You have to be super, super consistent with what you're doing and how you're getting there and all that stuff. Like, that's what you're trying to do. Because as long as you're consistent, people will follow you. It's like that with books too. Like the first novel, like when I started doing shows, my first novel, my first book was in 2014. My first book I
Mhm.
really took seriously. When I had my second book out at the end of 2015, my sales went up.
Yeah.
Just by default, having a second book just pushed me up.
Mhm.
Third book pushed me up even a little bit farther. Now, I had to do other series, like that series had run its course, so I was doing another series, and I've been doing
Mhm.
that since. But the idea of when shows officially go all the way back up here, like Canada, we're a little bit farther behind in releasing measures than you are. Like I still
Yeah.
travel restrictions are still in place. There's other things still kind of in place right at the moment,
Mhm.
which um make no sense at this point in time. But hey, whatever. I mean, everybody's coming out of it at their own pace,
Yeah.
and the thing about it is, how to put this. So when I get back, I'm going to have 6 books, maybe 7, maybe 8
Mhm.
books, like ready to go. So when someone sees me at a convention, they're going to take me very seriously. They're going to look at all the different books I have, whether it's my Alice in Wonderland series, whether it's my original series with the publisher I was with, whether it was the next new series I'm working on, or maybe the book I'm writing and drawing. They're going to look at all this different stuff and say, "You got a little something for everybody." It's like, yep,
Yeah.
right? And so someone might go, "Well, I like why did you draw this?" Because I was the one suited to draw this. These guys are all
Mhm.
better than me beside me. That really do else doing the work. But in this particular case, they were the best person. And so I say all that with like that's just how it works. And with
Yeah.
comics, um, telling a full story is the hardest challenge. I mean, that's why they encourage people to go small. Telling an 8-page story can be done. I just sent an 8-page story out to for my first paid comic writing work.
Mhm.
Was literally like last week. I sent it out, and it's cool now. And I'm doing another creative fiction for another person this today in between rounds here, and it's just it's proving that you can show up and do it and tell a full story. That's what readers want. That's what editors want. That's what
Yeah.
everybody wants. Can you tell a full story? When you're jumping into a brand new series, I mean, I'm sure you had built in certain story points. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I've told a full story here, not the Uber story, but a
Yeah.
full story, right? Because I mean, let's be honest, you might not finish the series. I know you want to, and I think you're determined to, and you probably will, but shit might happen along the way. And but if you have if I get to my first 6 issues and I get this really cool arc here, cool. I
Mhm.
get another really cool 6 issues and I get this arc here, cool.
Yeah.
Now, will I get the full satisfaction of seeing the story run its course? Maybe not. But um I get the sense that in this particular case, um, what'll happen here is you'll be like, okay, I at least satisfied you here, I satisfied you here, satisfied you here. Right? You got these full stories I can tell, which will add to your credibility even if you don't finish the series. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, how many issues do you plan on writing with this?
Um, I plan on 30. That was my original goal. But now it's funny because you start writing and you're thinking, okay, I could tell stories that would fill in these time gaps, and all of a sudden 30 could go into more. But basically, like you were saying, it's smaller arcs. So each 6 issues will give a full story. I mean, it's not the full story, but it was originally written or being written as a novel trilogy. So I have notes that go all the way. And if something were to happen, I could say, all right, I'm going to release the last of it, you know, in a, get it all shored up into the novel form so that people could get the conclusion of the story. So that part's already written. And then, like you said, doing it in individual comics is a little bit more difficult. But I just think of it as each 6 kind of building toward the final end goal. And it might take a huge amount of years, and if people are still around and ready to willing to read it, I'll keep going. So the only thing that could happen is readers could say we're done, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But
Oh, what?
at this
Well,
point they seem interested in the story and moving along with it. So hopefully, and like you said, life happens. I can't predict what's going to happen 10 minutes from now, let alone 5 years from now. So if things stay on the same pathway they are, we should be able to get the story out. And if not, come what may, see what happens with,
You're gonna finish the
if
story one way
life
or the
shakes
other.
things up, you got to go with it.
Yeah, so you're gonna finish this one way or the one way or the other at this point. You're just gonna be like, yep, we're gonna do it. No, I get that. I think I think with the way it's gonna go, I think with the way things are going to evolve, you'll get to the point where you'll be able to do these things even faster, not slower, faster, right?
Yeah.
You build a certain enough of a, like, one of the things about comics, for anyone listening, is it's a team effort. It's a team effort to build a schedule. And I mean,
Mhm.
and one of the hardest things to do with a comic is to turn a profit. Now, it can happen. And the thing is, as you get more issues out, you create more trades and more ways to sell your stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with more potential passive income. And the more passive income means maybe you have more money to put into the business.
Yeah.
And right. So what might inevitably happen is you'll go to your artist eventually, like your penciler, which is probably the most expensive part of the process, and go, hey, look, we're making this. We can maintain this. How fast can you actually go?
Yeah.
Right. Because you're on pace to go for 10 years as of right now, but it's probably going to be closer to 7 or 8, because like anything else, right? Like anything else, when you start, it's like figuring out how to get your feet wet. And then once you figure that out, you figure out it gets faster. It gets easier. It doesn't get harder. It gets easier to do these things. And then next thing you know, like it's like me doing a podcast. I've done so many of them. I can literally churn out episodes like in a matter of hours. Doesn't matter, right? I can just do it. Like it's not even an effort anymore for me to do that. But the thing is, right? The thing is, that comes with a lot of practice, and same with comics. Like you'll get to the point where it'll be like, okay, I can now, like 3 months is probably your goal, 3-4 months right now, but you might want to go, you know what? I want to get to 2 months, because I think that's a reasonable goal. And because at 2 months, it's 6 issues, right? That's 6 issues. And so it's like, I can get to this art, because I'm also, the other thing that happens when you start telling stories is other stories start creeping into your head. And some of those stick as well. And you're like, oh shit, I gotta get these out too somehow, some way. Right. Right. Or maybe what you'll end up doing is, again, if this book is doing well, I'll launch another book in the middle of this somewhere, something smaller, right? Until I tell this story. And then, you just tell a smaller story in between. That way you're constantly producing stuff.
And that's kind of where I want to get to, is that point where there's always something new coming out. And I think every 2 months would be the ideal. It doesn't have to be just from this story, but I think if I told the artist, okay, let's make that focus to get new issues out every 2 months, we could actually see things going. And right now, we're halfway through issue 7, and issue 6 is still live on Kickstarter. So hopefully we can get a faster turnaround time going. And like you said, get more out at a quicker rate. And that leads to more trades. And that's, some people have said since issue 1 came out, they're waiting for the trade. So it's one of those things where once I can fulfill that, I'll have a different market of people that won't buy single issues. They'll hold out years if they have to not have to buy those single issues and just get that trade right in their hands.
Well, it's just from a financial. Okay, so again, there's different audiences, obviously, for different products. Like something I realized, like, again, everybody looking at the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter right now. He's doing a Disneyland model, which is basically, hey, come for this once of a lifetime experience. You will pay through the schnoz, but we'll make sure you never forget your experience. And that's what he's doing. And there is a huge audience for that. And I do think going forward, anybody that's on Kickstarter should be looking at how to tap into that audience, because that audience is there and available. And a lot of people just don't know how to do it. But then there's also there's others, like there's people like me who love the singles. Like, hey, I'll get your single issues, because I am an impatient fuck, and I enjoy the floppies. I love that comic book spinner rack kind of feel.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's other people's like, you know what? Trade is a much more efficient way of reading a story, which they are correct, but fuck those guys. No, I'm kidding. It's just like one of those, like, it's one of those things where it's just like, there's different kinds of readers. Everywhere. And you have to be aware of the fact that these different kinds of readers, this different kind of audience is always there. And one of maybe the hardest decisions you have to make as a business / creative is figure out which audience are you going to go after.
Yeah. I think for me, try to.
Hello?
I mean, I have to wait till I have enough to give them that. But then you have your high-end audience. So that's for the ones I get my books graded through CGC. And you have those on your table. And that's a whole different market of people that would never, I mean, most of the people that buy my CGC never buy actual copies of the book. They don't buy anything readable. They just want that graded one that kind of, for them, maybe they're prospecting. They're hoping that something happens. This series gets grabbed up by Netflix, Hulu, whatever streaming service, and they're sitting on a gold mine. So you have those kind of collectors. So you want to appeal. So my goal is whenever I put a table out to appeal to all the different level of collectors. I don't have the trade collector yet. And that's the biggest question I get asked is when is the trade coming out? And for that, I'm almost there. By the end of the summer, that'll be out. So I'll have all the different markets, and then just little trinkets, things like pins. You'll have people that'll buy them and never buy your book, but they just think the pin looks cool. So they'll pick that up. So what I've learned is people come to the table and ask for different things. So I think, all right, that collector I need to be ready for. I want the guy that has a shirt full of pins and not carrying any comic books in a bag. I want to be able to sell something to him as well.
So do you try then to focus on everybody, or are there specific audiences you really like?
I mean, I do. I like the audiences that like the high-end stuff because I grew up collecting anything and everything I could collect. So I kind of like that mentality of you want it to be pristine and perfect. But overall, I want the people that are going to get engaged in the story because they're going to buy, they're going to want issue 1. They don't care about 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not buying those ones graded. So the ones I want are the ones that are just kind of really into the series, and they'll buy it, almost as if it were a monthly, from buy it issue by issue and build their collection that way. But I just discovered, you can't ever focus too much on one audience because there's always some I'm missing. I'm sure of that. But I want to try to hit as many as I can. And you'll never hit them all. It's impossible.
No, I just see it. Something I kind of like made a clear conscious effort in my own head about. Maybe this is a difference of opinion. I don't know. I'm there. So there are many audiences as you specify, but there are some audiences I'm not interested in going for. Not because I think they're bad audiences. Far from it. It's just they're not for me. Yeah. Right. It's just like for example, CGG grading stuff. I may not be into that. I get why you are, but I mean, I understand the business aspect of that. But at the same time, it's like, do I really want to go through that trouble? Like, it feels like work in a way that right now, strictly speaking, I don't mind building collector things. But maybe my approach would be like, for example, I'm a big fan of Darwin Cook's Parker novels. Love the look, the feel, the whole thing. So someone down the road when I do a Kickstarter, that might be like the exclusive Kickstarter edition. I'll have like a regular book, but then I'll also have like a Kickstarter book. Hey, if you pay extra, you get this really cool thing that won't be available anywhere else. And I'll keep maybe like a handful of those around every so often just because they look really, really pretty. I like that kind of concept. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's part of comics. Like I collect comics too. I got them like they could be worth money. I bag and board everything I have. But at the same time, it's like, dude, but I like reading them too. So I'm somewhere like I'll never be a 9.5 graded book. I'll get maybe like maybe 7, 8 might be the absolute best I'll have. And I'm good with that because I like reading and experiencing the books, right? So for me personally, like I just kind of feel like the audiences you go for aren't that different from yourself. Maybe that I'm a little crazy that way. Maybe I'm thinking in those terms, but it's like
that's definitely true because I always do, like you were saying, like a variant cover. But some people do their variants at the same rate as their main ones. I print just 25 of them for those collectors that want something rare and exclusive. and I'm trying out a foil one because people kept asking about foil. So this Kickstarter campaign, I decided, let me see how foil does, and it seems to be pretty popular as one of the tiers. So it's just, yeah, you kind of listen to your audience, and for me, them a copy that's not graded, they can still read it, but it still has that exclusivity to it, and maybe they'll only read the digital copy and keep that one in its bag and board nice and clean, like you're saying. And I mean, I have books the same way. I mean, long boxes and long boxes upon long boxes in the garage, and some of them are well read and tired. Like if I sent in my first copy of Sandman because I have multiple trades to still read that, and it got a really low grade, but I didn't care because I was able to get Neil Gaiman to sign it. So that was all that mattered to me. Was I finally met someone that I really loved and got him to sign it. So I'm like, if this thing gets a 1.0, I don't care, because it's all about the moment and actually meeting him and all of that happened, not just the, my beat up low grade copy of it.
Well, that's just it. Like for most people, that's what's the valuable thing. It's not the book, it's the experience that comes with it. Yeah, that's what I've learned. And for you met Neil Gaiman, which awesome. Yeah. I think he might know I exist. He might know I exist. So that's about it, right? So kudos to you. And his Sandman, in my opinion, is probably his best work in terms of
absolutely.
I was ruined. I'm a Ray Bradbury guy. I'm a Charles DeLint guy. I read them before I read Gaiman. So Gaiman didn't have the same impact. Because if you read DeLint or you read Bradbury, they tell similar kinds of stories to what Gaiman does, right? And, and I think Gaiman himself would say, yeah, Bradbury's better than me. Like, he probably would say that, right? It's just like, yeah, he probably, right? And DeLint is, it's funny. I don't know if I had seen Gaiman first and DeLint second, maybe I'd feel the same way about Gaiman I do DeLint. But because they are like different mythologies, but they almost tell their stories. They tell their stories in very similar ways, and it's just their voice is different, but their concepts aren't that different. And it's just like,
I haven't read his stuff. I've read Bradbury. Bradbury, I discovered out through college, and it was one of those. You have to read Fahrenheit 451. That's one of your standard English lit novels. And from that, I'm like, ooh, I need more of this. So it was, just devoured all of his stuff. Once I started reading the standard English lit requirement, that just opened up that whole world. So I've read plenty of his, and I can see where you have like those connections that come. But I got Gaiman first because I started reading that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And that was just someone... I bought tons of copies of the Superman Death issue. And I was, for a minute, the comic cool guy on campus because no one could get a copy. And I had like 20 of them. And one guy's like, I'll trade you this Sandman #1 for that Superman. And I traded, and that just hooked me into everything Neil Gaiman.
You won that trade. Oh, yeah, you won that trade. Yeah.
At the time, I probably didn't. At the time, it was probably lopsided on his end, but that was because in that moment, there was all the hysteria. Everybody needed that Superman issue, but I had been collecting comic books long enough to know that hype was going to die down when people realized there were millions of those things out there. And just because they were scarce at the moment doesn't mean they're actually scarce.
No, everything's a moment in time, right? Now, some books are hits. You just find them and you just keep them. For example, I discovered Kevin Eastman's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles run, the one that's currently still going, right? I got there at number 1. I'm like, I'm in. I don't care. I'm in. I felt like from an investment perspective, I made a great decision.
I'd say so.
I made a great decision but even from a story perspective, they are still fun books. So it's just like, I won. Yay. Right. Because those books are freaking awesome. Now, not everybody would feel that way necessarily, but I mean, we all have those like those moments where we discover those gems. But in comics, yes, the books with the most hype, like I think the last one was the Black Label Batman where he shows his dick.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, that's a hype book. That's all that is. Everybody
needed it at the moment, and then they'll forget about it. And now Now that Superman's going to get you $25. I'm guessing the Batman is still, $50 or something, but for a
It's gonna
second
drop.
it blew up and just, everybody needed a copy of it. But yeah, that's if you've been collecting long enough, you know that that's what's going to happen. It's just a wave. It's people need it because it gets a little bit of media attention, and now it's the book everybody has to own, even if they don't own any other comic books. They think they have to have that one.
Yeah, no, all my gems are completely by accident. I just got into them at the right time. Something like
Yeah.
Immortal Hulk. It's like I
Hmm.
got in at number one. It's like, what do you think? This is really good. It's like, and
Yeah.
yeah, those early issues are worth stupid money because,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the plan. I was just like, I think the thing about comic collecting is what I've learned is it's really got to be about what you enjoy. There are
Yeah.
definitely collectors, variants, special, like special promotional kind of stuff, and there's definitely a place for that in the market.
Hmm.
But you and I both know this too. Variant covers can be brutal, like on the
Yeah.
industry if that's all you got.
Oh yeah. You have to have something else to I mean, like some of the same was like Immortal Hulk. I liked Hulk. I heard it was a good Hulk story, so I jumped in. And if it goes up, it goes up. I mean, if you're one of those prospectors, you're going to miss more than you hit.
Oh yeah,
And especially if you're just collecting variant upon variant, because you're going to pay a pretty penny to get them. People aren't selling them for cheap. The comic shop owners are going to be selling them way more, and it might hit and you might end up with something great, or you might end up with a stack of books you can't get rid of. So if you collect for just the prospecting side of things, I mean, I'm sure there's people that make plenty of money and could tell me I'm way wrong, but for me, it's just like you said, buy what you love, and if it goes up, great. You can say, oh, that's so cool, I have that book. And like the Sandman that started to go up, and the Netflix series might blow it up, and I can always
oh
think I
no,
traded that for
no,
an
you
old
got.
Superman.
I'm very curious. Like that one, they better be very faithful with because that one's really good. I'm very curious what they're going to do with the post Neil Gaiman stuff that's going to be included in there as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because the post Neil stuff, although is not all of it's terrible, I think some of it's actually really neat. But some of it, not all of it, but some of it.
Yeah, some of it is terrible. So it's kind
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah. It's
it's a
like it's
mixed
the fate of all
bag.
franchises. Yeah, it's the fate of all franchises. Like okay, I'm a Green Lantern guy. I right. The movie will always be something. I'll be like, yes, it's real. I'll live with that. I'll just live that the movie exists.
Yeah.
Like you want to talk about it? Not really, but it's there, right? And I also got to live with the fact that every so often, like in comics, like you go in wild new directions. Like when Hal was replaced by Kyle. You want probably one of the best examples of quality, quantity, like nightmares. Look at the X-Men or look at Spider-Man,
Yeah.
right? X-Men, like as a concept, is awesome. But
Mhm.
when you get down to like the nitty-gritty, like what's a really good X-Men book? There are runs that are amazing that people will
Yeah.
rave about forever. But by and large, those are gems inside a big pile, right? That doesn't mean everything else is bad. There are some from recent times. I really enjoyed Peter David's X Factor run. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
Tom Taylor's X-Men Red run. I'm actually a big fan of the Marauders series right now that's currently existing. Although my favorite probably of all the new X books was Excalibur.
Mhm.
It's a fun book. It was just
Yeah.
fun, and that's all you want sometimes. Is something that's just
Yeah,
really
just
fun.
entertain me. You don't need
Yeah,
everything doesn't need to be deep and profound. I mean, there's plenty of room for that, but sometimes you just want 20 minutes of entertainment in your life.
yeah, the Psylocke A becoming the Psylocke becoming the new knight, and the dynamics. It was just a fun book. It wasn't.
Mhm.
I didn't. Whereas the regular X-Men book, I wasn't so crazy about. I was
Yeah.
like, nah, not my thing this time, right? But again, that's the thing. There's so much out there. I equated it yesterday. Like there's the business dream is McDonald's, and the reason why it's the business dream is because in terms of business, right? You get everything. It's a perfect model for you. And the closest thing we have, like in the novel world, to that's James Patterson, right?
Yeah.
Closest thing we got to that. But if you look at it from a point of view of quality, well, don't pay attention too much to those French fries. You might find some things out you might not want to.
Yeah.
And you know that's just life. Like, you know, that's just the way it goes. It's just the way it is. You know, you sacrifice when a franchise gets to a certain size, you're just gonna right, or a company gets to a certain size. Not every book's going to be a hit, and then all they just care about is that that book is out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from a comic standpoint, who are your go tos?
My go-to that I read, I mean, I read basically all the Sandman run. I was a huge Garth Ennis fan as well, so I read through Preacher and The Boys. So I was both of those series. Those were kind of my two favorite. I loved Why the Last Man. I don't think he stuck the landing with the ending, but it was a great series along the way. So that was when I was hoping that the show could remedy the kind of the whatever ending that he put in there. So I mean those were the ones I read a lot. I got so hooked on Vertigo stuff when
I
I was
see
in high
that.
school and I discovered just someone gave me that Sandman and then I fell into the Vertigo rabbit hole, got into Preacher from there, read Metropolitan and just kind of dug into the old issues of Swamp Thing. So all of that Vertigo stuff was my kind of when I got tired of Marvel and DC just doing the event of the month, because that was the 90s. Like, okay, new holofoil cover with whatever crossover that you have to buy 18 books that have 3 panels dedicated to the main story. And just, oh my gosh, I got so sick of those. So I kind of put those aside and really dug deep into the Vertigo stuff when I was probably like from high school, like end of high school through college. That was what I was really reading through.
So let's see. Transmet is a series I discovered later on. It's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah.
I would probably at some point find a single issue run of all of that
Hmm.
if I could, because it's a really neat. It's a very, very profound. It's a very interesting look at cities. It's probably one of Warren's best stuff, although in my opinion, Planetary is Warren's best work in my humble
Yeah.
opinion. But that's mine. Um, Garth Garth Ennis is. I like The Boys. I read The Boys. The
Hmm.
Boys was is a disturbing book. The
Yeah.
show has gone its own direction now, but the first season is very close to what was in the comics,
Yeah. It
right?
follows it pretty well.
Yeah, pretty close. Second season's got a little bit of it, but not to the same degree. And the third season is probably going to go in its own direction from here
I'm
on in,
thinking, yeah.
um, because I mean, like guys, the Homelander twist in the comic is a lot more twisted than than what's been happening there so far. But
Yeah.
the thing about this is once you get to a certain point with the boys, I mean, there is so much potential for it to go in other areas. It's a deep concept, so I don't blame them for that. But I think my favorite stuff with Garth Ennis is his war stuff. He's
Yeah. He
actually a
does
really
great
good.
those little one shots of war stories or, little
Even
mini
minis, like
series.
I like his Johnny Red was really fun. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed that, and he's great there. And I have a little soft spot for Hitman. I have a
Okay, and
little
that's one
soft.
I never read Hitman. It's like I was so into Garth Ennis and I never jumped onto Hitman. So that's one I know it's in trades. I could read it the easy way, just grab a few up.
It is not his best work,
Yeah,
but
that's what I've heard.
it's not his best. But at the same time, a lot of people think Garth Ennis hates superheroes. I don't think that's actually true. I think he
Yeah.
hates the tropes of superheroes,
Mhm.
but I think he loves the idea of superheroes. And I think Hitman
Yeah.
is kind of a weird love letter homage to that, right?
Mhm.
In its own way. Like I loved how he writes Superman. I would actually love to see Garth Ennis write a Superman story. I think it'd be fun, right?
Yeah, I think he could do a fun Superman story for sure.
But yeah,
If they
he's got
gave
it in
him the
him.
reins and didn't make him have to, do it
I,
as a nice PG one, he could do a nice
I, I,
R-rated
I,
Superman story.
I think I would give him PG-13. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily. I don't necessarily need an R-rated Superman story. I don't think Superman does great as an R-rated concept,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Is
But
it
as a PG-13, where you see Superman deal with some slightly more adult things, because the thing about Superman is he's at his best when his powers don't mean much, ironically enough,
Yeah.
right? Right? It's cool that he can solve almost any problem with all his wonderful powers. Who cares? No one cares about that. Here's what people care about. How does Superman deal with something that's a little bit more adult, a little bit more mature? I actually like the fact that he's the dad now. Like, I actually like that fact because it adds a dimension to his character, and he can be, it's in his wheelhouse, right? That's the, but yeah, I don't want to see an R-rated Superman story. I don't think there's there might be one or two good ones you can tell, but that's not where Superman's best. Superman's best kind of in the PG. You can go with PG-13, but I think PG is actually where he's best suited.
Yeah, I just think of it would be the villain to make it R. I just think of like a Superman Lobo story could be fun if Garth Ennis took that one to an R, but it would be more what Lobo's doing, not what Superman's doing.
You could, yeah, because the problem is Superman's not as elastic as Batman or Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Batman you can put in any situation. Green Lantern is pretty much in that category, although not quite, right?
Mhm.
Same with the Flash. Like that, like if you look at a character like Superman or Wonder Woman or Aquaman or Namor or even the Fantastic Four, right? Captain America has some of these limitations as well. These characters, you can tell really compelling stories with them, but you can't put them in every situation. You can put Captain America in a war story. It fits.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you want to put Captain America in a purely science fiction story.
No.
I'm not sure you want to do that. Right? A purely hard sci-fi, I'm not sure it's quite his thing. But you could do that with Batman. You could do that with Spider-Man. You can do that with Green Lantern. You can do that with the Flash, right? Wonder Woman, same thing. You can actually go into a war story with Wonder Woman. You can make a rated R Wonder Woman story. The character does have the range for that. But I'm not sure you can do a really compelling, ironic. I don't know how many compelling stories you can go in that space, right? And there are some places she's just not. You gotta be true to the characters, right? So Spider-Man, because he's kind of like a modern day Percival, you can put him in any situation. And the beautiful thing about Spider-Man is because of how he is, the audience will go with him for the ride. Batman is pretty elastic himself. You can make him a hero, a villain. You can do all kinds of things with Batman, and it will work. You can't really. I mean, you can make Superman a villain, I guess, but there's only so many stories you can put. Yeah, we've seen that.
Else, like from a different world, and I guess that's how you do a Superman R is just Superman from another world killing people. And
Superman Red Sun is the best R-rated Superman story.
Yeah, I'd say
it's the best one. I don't know if you can do another one like it. Like I just don't like. I don't know if you can do two like that, right? Whereas I think Superman's as best. He's got this like nice little niche he's in. All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison is the best modern Superman stuff.
Yeah.
It's still the best stuff. But I mean, that's to say, you got to understand what your characters are and what they're not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're writing immortal characters in your comic books. So, I mean, you've eliminated death is different with you in your book. You can't put there. Doesn't mean it does not exist. Maybe it does. But the thing about it is you can't use it the same way anymore. You have to do something a little different, which means your characters, I'm not going to say it limits the kind of stories you can tell, but you have a limit with how you create tension now because you can't just kill them the same way because it doesn't work, so it is.
That's true.
Yeah, that's just that, right? So, I mean, and if you try to tell those stories, you kind of betray their whole premise. So suddenly your audience will get this weird disconnect button. It's like, I'm out. I'm just out.
Yeah.
And you can't blame them, right? You can't blame them. And when you look at certain comic characters, right? And especially like the older, pulpier characters, you can't put them in like every situation. It just doesn't work. Yeah. More modern characters have a little bit more shades of gray to them. But even some of them, there's like again, you can put Batman in outer space, and you can tell a Batman outer space story, and it can be fun. It could actually be a lot of fun. You can put Batman on street level Gotham. It's always which is where he tends to always generally be, but that's where he's fun. You can put Batman on a road trip. You can put Batman. You can have Batman literally do anything. Yeah, anything you want, and
throw Batman in hell. You'd still read it and enjoy it.
Yeah, because Batman as a character has the elasticity to kind of go absolutely anywhere you want him to, right? Yeah. Spider-Man's pretty much the same thing, You can do right now. They have a slightly different outlook on life. I think Spider-Man's stories tend to be sunnier than Batman stories.
Yeah.
But you can put Spider-Man in space. You can put Spider-Man in hell. You can put Spider-Man anywhere you want.
Yep.
Right.
People will read it.
Yeah, people will read it, and
And
people. But it's also
it can be still an interesting story.
That's the thing, right? That's the important thing. Where are your characters most interesting? Right.
Yeah.
And that's right. And some characters have a shallower pool than others. Superman has a shallower pool than Batman. He just does. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't mean you can't tell a good Superman story. That also doesn't mean I don't think Garth Ennis can not tell a Superman story. I think he can.
Yeah.
Right. I just think, I don't think you can do an R-rated Superman story very often.
Yeah, with certain characters, it's harder because he likes to just go. I mean, he just did a Batman story, so that's kind of more in his wheelhouse. You can go a little crazier with Batman, but it would be interesting, like you said, he doesn't hate superheroes, but that's the perception. So to let him write a true superhero story, I think would be the big stretch for him.
It'd be the problem is it limits what you can do. Like there's a certain, like when you read The Boys, like when you actually read The Boys, which is Garth writes the whole series, the physics of superheroes, right, it is very, very, very weird and different, and than what people would imagine to be, and then Garth goes out of his way to explain the absurdities of some of the things that happens in superheroes.
Yeah.
Right. The very first issue with the death of Huey's girlfriend is very much a reality that would happen in a real superhero fight. Like one thing that's never talked about is when a superhero goes through the building, well, you probably just killed a whole bunch of people. I mean, unless you're very, very lucky, right? Well, The Boys, that's not what happens. Here's what happens. It's just a very, very bad time for everybody involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's the thing, right? I think it's the trappings of superheroes that probably annoy him. Although I did love his Punisher, where he used Spider-Man as a human shield, because I don't think he likes Spider-Man very much.
I forgot about his Punisher run, but yeah, that was a fun one too.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Punisher is but I mean, maybe it's too much the other way. I don't think you can tell a PG Punisher story.
No,
I don't think you can't do it. He's just not wired that way. You can tell really graphic, really dark, kind of gray area, shades of gray, but you can't pull him back into like, hey, a typical super. No, because he's not, and he never should be, and he doesn't work if he's a superhero.
Yeah,
right. I mean, hey kids, you can kill everybody in a quest for vengeance, right? So I mean, it just doesn't work. So do you still want to plan to write novels? Is that still a big part of what you want to do?
It's one of those things that's still definitely in my mind. And like you said, as you're writing stories, more stories start kind of creeping in your head. So I have a few ideas for that. I have a few other comic series ideas, because that's the one thing you were talking about is variety on the table. Because where I'm at right now, if my particular story doesn't appeal to the person walking up to my table, then that's all I have. So I want to definitely have, here's a kid-friendly book. Here's a book that's, completely different in all ways, so that you can appeal to to different audiences. Because right now, if you like, post-apocalyptic stories with sprinkles of fantasy, I got your book for you. If that's not what you're into, I don't have your book. My table has nothing to call your name. So, like you were saying with your novels, you have a wide variety, you have different genres, you can pull in a lot of different types of readers. And that's kind of the ultimate goal that I have, is to pull in more readers and really just have something for everyone. So I would love to do even like a running book to talk about the do's and don'ts of running, which would be completely different. We're talking a nonfiction book just to appeal to even those people. So it wouldn't be your comic readers, but you might find someone
and you've frozen. We'll get to see
who
that
would be interested in that.
Okay, so I can I put a slightly, I'm going to be gentle on on this a little bit. I want to push back a little, play devil's advocate with you a little bit on this point. I think one of the things I've learned in as a freelancer in the last 2 years is like the real secret to success isn't necessarily to appeal to everybody, but to find whatever your audience actually is. Who's your audience, right? And who do you want to be? Now I have a very interesting approach for writers and creatives that I think should be thought about, but which will allow you to diversify. But I think honestly, for most people, it's good to go after specific audiences, right?
Yeah.
I'm right. Trying to hit everybody is again, talking about something we said earlier, trying to make everybody happy is fruitless.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna work. Right. Because now that doesn't mean now, if you have a running book inside you that you really want to tell, then you should.
And it wouldn't be something I would be forcing, because that's something that's an equal passion of mine that I've been really into. So I would never want to do, I want to diversify, but never force. Because if it's not inside of me, then you're forcing it and your audience will know. They'll read it and be like, all right, because if I write a running book, for example, a runner, if I don't do it right and I don't put my research into it and my facts to show I know what I'm doing, they're going to know it right away. And in a chapter, they're going to know this is a garbage running book. And I've read lots of garbage running books because they don't know what they're writing about. They're giving you something too basic or too complex. For your standard runner doesn't need to know all of these different chemical reactions that are going on. So you would need to know who you're trying to appeal to. So whatever I would do to diversify, and yes, I'll never hit every market. There's an impossibility, but I do have a children's story in me. And that's because I teach 5th grade and I would love to have a story that my students could actually read. So I have that story in me. And then, there's other stories that are in there, but the story has to come organically. And if I wrote a running book, it wouldn't be, okay, I want to be able to appeal to runners. But no, if you look at my logo and things like that, it already appeals to runners because it has a skeleton not quite finishing a race, and runners will come up and we'll start getting in big, long conversations about marathon running and ultra running and things like that. So I think that's the kind of book I would love to write, to talk to the person who's thinking about starting into marathoning or long distance running, and what can I offer them to get them across that finish line.
Yeah, no, okay, so which is the other part where I was going to get to, which is this, right? Then in that case, the brand shouldn't be the stories you're writing.
Yeah.
The brand should be you. Mm-hmm. Because if the brand is you, right, again, running and comic books about immortal beings don't really seem to be like, there's not an easy connection to make there. Right? But Edward Davis, teacher, runner, author, there's a more natural connection there because it's about you and your interests and your passions, and that's a realer thing. And I bring this up like this because in this sense, what happens is, it's easier for you to shift, right? Mm-hmm. It's just easier. It's just easier for you to shift. And that I think would be very much what you want. Right. Whereas if you're just like, I'm just promoting I am a science fiction and fantasy author. Yeah, you can do kid stuff. Yeah, you can do a few other things, but that running book becomes a much harder thing. Like, do you make a sci-fi running book? I think it's possible, but I also think it could be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, actually, now you're saying it, I'm like, that could be completely bonkers and fun. It could be an absolute disaster as well.
Well, but that could be part of like here's the thing. You can lean into that as well, right? Hey, let's make this a total car crash in the best way possible. Because here's the thing, right? People want to be entertained. Yeah. If a runner comes and buys a book about running and you're making fun of all this future science fiction stuff, with top of it and make it like a parody, well, I don't know if they'll necessarily all want to buy that book, but you'll get like a chuckle. It's like, I so get your jokes here, right?
Yeah.
Now the science fiction guy may like, what the fuck are these jokes? I know they're supposed to be jokes, but I don't get it.
I
But
missed them all. Yeah.
yeah, I missed them all, right? But I mean, that is the risk. But I mean, like again, it's just looking at who you are and what you can do. It's all about imagination. You don't
Yeah.
have to like you can take what we do as storytellers is we play with expectations. That's what we do. Sometimes we fulfill them, sometimes we subvert them, right? And when we fulfill them, we put a little twist with them. And if we subvert them, we are still true to the expectation, kind of on some level. On some level, there's a truth to it.
Yeah.
All of which to say, in your case, right? You gotta make a decision then. Do you want to go with the expectations? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. What's your twist? If you want to go against expectations, okay, cool. But how are you honoring the worst thing is a Duce Machina, where something comes out of nowhere that never had any business being there. But it's like
Yeah.
the writer's like, that's your only way out. You can do that once or twice if it's kind of like quietly mentioned somehow, some way. But
Mhm.
you don't have that luxury of calling on that card very often. So you have
Yeah.
to make sure what you're doing is true to the story you're telling.
Mhm.
And so I mean but so when you're doing, let's say you do a science fiction running book, well, what do the science fiction people expect? What do the running people expect? Right? And how do I fuck with it? And like in
Yeah.
like the best possible way, right? How do I fuck with it? Because that could be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
And if it's done well, you'll please both, right? Even if neither side fully gets it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that just makes me think, yeah, it's always a way of taking the basic, taking it all up. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and these are
And
just nuggets of ideas. And it's like they're basic little brainstorms, and they're a long way from being in somebody's hands, but it's just, having all your ideas out there is what I would really want. It's less about appealing to all the audiences, because I when I'm pitching my book, I lose a lot of people when I start talking about the fact that one of my characters is a decapitated head and it's gory, and it's like you're never going to get those people in. They don't like to be scared, and I've been yelled at by people like, "Oh, you just gave me nightmares. You're showing me this image." So I know that they're not my market, and I can't, no matter what I do, I'm not winning them over, because my brain isn't going to write, even if I write a children's story, it's going to be more on the level of Goosebumps, because I know kids love being scared. So it's not going to be, the happy dog story or something like that. It's still going to have my twisted take on things, but kids like that. I mean, kids
well, sure.
enjoy being scared. That's why if I have my shelf full of Goosebump books, I can't keep them. They get read so much the pages fall out, because the kids love a good scare. So that's more the area that I would be looking at, and that would be more where I would have more fun.
But I think adults enjoy being scared too, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just again, it's about being true to yourself, right? And that's kind of like why I'm pushing back on. It's like I think what you should be thinking of is like, what do I do? And how can I do this to express my postures? I mean, you could do a zombie marathon. That'd be an interesting like little thing too. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
that'd be cool. You run until it drops. Now, I mean, that may not actually be that much of a story, but I mean, it could be funny. I mean, for like one
Yeah.
little scene, right? But I mean, there's lots of ways of telling a story. There's lots of ways of presenting a project. It's just understanding what those presentations actually are.
Yeah.
Right. And how you can do it. And today, the thing about today is, right, anything truly is possible. It's no longer about like one specific way or one old-fashioned way of telling a story. Not that there's anything wrong with an old-fashioned way of telling a story. It's just you have options you never considered before. And as a result, maybe what you got to be like is like, you know what? Again, playing with expectations. Do I really want to tell it this way? Is there another way I could tell this story? Right? What do I really care about here?
Yeah.
And that's a very different answer than, but then, go following with the standard expectations. I shouldn't have paused there. There's a very, very written that, but that's okay. But yeah, like that's what I mean. That's the thing. Like we have to today, especially there are more, again, it's easier to make books. It's not necessarily, it's cheaper too. All things considered, it's cheaper. It's cheap to make, like content is easy to make, and it's got an infinite demand. The only real question we have is this: how do we want to tell our stories, and what serves us best? So Edward Davis, teacher, runner, writer extraordinaire, if there's a certain audience, like again, you want to hit kids. Okay, so hit kids. You want to talk about runners. Okay, hit runners. Even athletes, depending on how you do it, athletes will be inspired by this too, right?
Yeah.
I think it got you thinking a little bit at least.
Oh yeah, and that's always good.
Yeah.
Always good to get the wheels turning.
So, a couple more things. I think we can call this a wonderful little interview. I'm just curious, what's your longest run?
My longest run, 48 miles.
Yeah. One of those death runners. What they say death.
That was it was an ultra, and one of the runners that I was running with got sick, so I had to take all her miles because it was a relay race. So it went from it was supposed to be about 25 to 48. So yes, I survived that one. And then I've done just all in one shot. The longest I did was a 33.
So you're in great shape then.
I try. I probably eat all the wrong things and ignore whatever running book told me I shouldn't be eating that because I burn calories. I want to eat pizza instead.
It depends how you make it. You can do a lot. Like there's a lot of tricks with food that can make it a lot more palatable. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of tricks. It's like anything else. Like some research is good, no matter what you choose to do. Some research is actually really good. So, but I'm very curious about that. On that note, so you got a 30-issue series planned. Are you going to do any, like, of all the side stories you have in your head, are you going to novelize any of those?
I think that might be a fun way to do it because basically in the series, we start in the year 2000, then it takes a huge time, 100 years into the future. So there's 200 years of stories that I can tell. And there's a few little side characters I created that I really love. And I would love to give a novelizing of that character that could kind of tell what was going on in the world through all those years to see how it changed into the mess that it's become when we finally see with our main characters in that world. So I think that might be fun to novelize. And I've also had an idea to do kind of an anthology where other creators could put their take on it. And I have a few creators that are interested, just kind of tales in the Immortal Era, and see what's going on in the rest of the world. Because where I have is such a small scale of what's going on in Australia, what's going on in Asia, in Europe. So get writers from those regions to actually tell their stories of what's going on. And I have a few that said they have a good comedy story that they could write about having to deal with someone who won't die. So I think it could be a fun thing to do too.
When we talked the first time, I mentioned this, and that was, my second novel, and the one I broke because I tried to tell it like George R. R. Martin. I shouldn't have done that. I should just tell the story as it was. Is about a virus that makes everybody live forever.
Okay.
Right. So I had the idea of immortality a long time ago. I thought, let's flip it. Instead of like killing people, let's make it so they live forever. But the catch was anybody under the age of 6 years old died. So that was the catch. And anybody still alive after that. So I had a lot of fun because I had it where some kids grew up overnight. I had it where some kids grew up very slowly because everybody's a little different. Right. Was left. And I had people searching for purpose in a life without death. Right. And then when I got to the cure, the big thing that I had there is the cure like a bizarre kind of suicide? Right. All right. And I did all kinds of like fun little things I had a lot of great ideas, but the way I told that story, I broke the novel. I broke it so hard over my knee. But no, immortality is a fascinating concept. Although I wouldn't want it. I realize like honestly, I don't think anybody sane wants to live forever. I think it's a very you always want more time. you're always going to want more time no matter how long you live, because there's so many things you can do. But at the same time, I like the fact but one of the reasons I'm so inclined to do things is because I don't know how long I have.
Yeah.
Right? If I could control that, I'm not sure I'd want to, if that makes sense.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
Dog's
okay.
barking over there.
He sounds very happy with whatever's going on around him.
Yeah. Hold on, I got to see what's at the door. Sorry about
No
that.
worries. No worries. What you gotta do. And ladies and gentlemen, we are coming near the end of this interview. I'm just going to do this right now, since we are coming.
Sorry, just UPS, but made the dog crazy if I didn't go pick it up.
No, I get that. I hope it's a good package for you.
Looks like it is. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just going to finish what I was going to do here. So this, because I didn't know how long you were going to be gone, this is my latest book release. It's Alice 1. It's Alice in Wonderland. It's Greek mashed up with Greek mythology. Alice is Pandora. Alice chases the Queen of Hearts over the edge of the world, and in so doing, ends up in the Greek underworld, where to escape, she must play croquet against Jason of the Argonauts. And in this underworld maze, Alice and company discover gods, monsters, and themselves. It's available now on Amazon.
I will have to check that one out. That sounds fun.
It was a lot of fun. So it's an epic poem. It's actually done in poetry form, but it's
That's awesome.
It's very Wonderland. It's very, very Wonderland. So I had a lot of fun writing it. But no, like going back what we were saying before interruptions, like life has changed. And if we didn't die, inevitably things wouldn't change. Yeah. And I think that would be hell.
And I think that's what kind of where I write it from is, you get the vampires that can kind of tell it's, I guess no one ever looks at it as great, but in mine, it's just, they want nothing more than to get rid of it because they realize immortality is a terrible existence. And I think most people, if you live long enough, would come to that conclusion. Maybe if you're a vampire, you can go 300-400 years before you start getting tired of it. But if you're actually aging and you can't even move, after a couple hundred years, your brain's going to be mush. So you do not want to live through having to be in that existence. So it's always fun playing with immortality. And so many authors have done it in so many different ways. So it's kind of trying to find a different way to do it, which is nothing's entirely new. And of course, people will come to your table like, oh, this reminds me of this, this, or this. And it's like, yeah, some of these people inspired me. And I said, it reminds me of Gulliver's Travels, which is where I got the original concept in my head when he got to the island and everyone was immortal. And I said, so if I'm stealing, it's from the best. I steal from only the best authors in the world. So you can kind of silence.
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong
and
with
everybody
that.
steals. It's just, how are you going to make it your own? Because it's hard to come up with an entirely completely new concept in this. I mean, not impossible, but it sure isn't easy.
We live in an age today where it's very, very, very like what makes things unique is us. It's not the story we're telling, it's how we tell it. There's no one person that tells the exact same story the exact same way. That's the magic secret. So like I said when we were talking earlier about like making the best kind of stories you can tell, right? Work on your own personal brand. That's why at the end of the day, it's you that tells the stories, not right. And your story can be about anything you want it to be, right? And that's kind of why my approach when I'm thinking about branding is me, because I don't want my entire private life revealed to the world, but at the same time, right? I have to share because that's what I offer. That's truly unique in the world. It's not. It's not. It's not me sitting around and what's the term? It's not my ideas exactly. It's what I do with them, and that's the important part.
Yeah, I would say that's true. You gotta put yourself into everything, and people will read it.
Yep.
If they like you, if they like what you do, then there's always a bit of yourself in there. And like you said, you you're not giving away everything in your life. But if you're trying to just check boxes, which I don't want to, I like when I say I want to appeal to other people, that doesn't mean I want to check boxes. Now I can appeal to every reader that exists in the world, because it's not going to happen. But always being true to yourself, I think nothing is more important than that.
Oh, no, that's all we got. Like, here's the deal. It's possible at some point in the ball game, right? It's possible at some point in the ball game. Like, you could become J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or Dean Koontz or Diana Gabaldon or any of these people that have done really well.
Yeah.
But you can't control what that looks like at the end of the day. What you can do is be the best version of you possible whenever you put a story out there. And that's it. There's no other magic trick to it. There's none. Be the best person you can, tell the best story you can, learn and tell different, keep telling stories. And eventually, again, where you end up, who knows, but you will find people to connect with because you're putting yourself out there. And although we are all unique, we're not all that different either. It's kind of one of our unique little paradoxes. All of us at the end of the day kind of want the same things. So put that stuff out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Ed, I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
I think we do.
Okay. So what you should be doing is you should tell people where to find you and what's going on with you right now in terms of releases.
So right now, I have a Kickstarter for issues 1 through 6 of my series Immortal Era. This will wrap up the first storyline. So that's available on Kickstarter right now. If you want to look for me on social media, it's under Finish Line Comics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And there you can see new art and upcoming appearances. And I'll be in 2 weeks. I'll be at WonderCon in Anaheim, which is California's finally getting back to opening the cons up. So that'll be on this year, but my first big one. So you can find me there, and then always on social media or at finishlinecomics.com, where I have a web store and also another calendar with all upcoming appearances.
So Finish Line Comics, like this?
That's the one.
Oh, we're going to do this both. So its Kickstarter is currently available right now. You can go right here, ladies and gentlemen. You definitely go check them out. It's definitely one of those things where it looks really cool. It's a really cool concept. Check Kickstarter out. Finally, this is his website. Go check out finishlinecomics.com. You can go there right now. And I've already promoted my stuff, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to be wrapping this bad boy up. This is Ed Davis. This is his stuff. Definitely check him out. I'm looking forward to that science fiction running book we just accidentally talked about.
Man. Now it's got to happen. Now it's completely morphed in my brain to something that could be wild and crazy. And like you said, it'll some audiences would be completely lost. But yeah, I love that. The science fiction or zombie one, I'm thinking, this needs to happen. And you just put enough nuggets in there to make the runners know that I know what I'm doing, that I'm not just making it up.
Exactly. So to everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I will have another stream a little bit later on today. It's going to be starting something really cool. I hope you guys come check it out. In the meantime, stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys later.